All right, let's jump right into the core of human biochemistry, how our bodies turn carbohydrates into fuel. We're going to break down all the essential pathways you absolutely need to know, and you'll see how they all connect back to one single super important molecule. And the star of our show is, you guessed it, glucose. This little quote here is a perfect way to start because it kind of introduces itself, right? It hints at its big jobs in energy and building things, and importantly, what happens when things go wrong, like in diabetes. So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with why glucose is such a big deal. Then we'll map out the major metabolic highways it travels. We'll look at what your body does after a meal versus when you're fasting. We'll even check out a special side road pathway. And then we'll tie it all back to the clinic, which is where this stuff really matters. Okay, let's get into it. Before we can really get the whole metabolism picture, we have to understand why everyone calls glucose the universal fuel. I mean, it's basically the dollar bill of your body's energy economy. You can think of glucose as the ultimate multitasker. It's not a one-trick pony. Your body can burn it for quick energy right now, or it can pack it away neatly as something called glycogen to use later. And if things get really tight, your body can even build it from scratch using other materials. It really is the central hub for everything we're about to talk about. Now, what's really wild is this number right here. Look at how narrow that range is. Your body works 24/7 to keep your blood sugar right in that sweet spot. The liver is kind of like the thermostat or glucostat, making sure it's perfect. Because if you dip too low, your brain starves. If you go too high, it starts damaging your body. It is a constant, delicate balancing act. Okay, so let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Imagine carbohydrate metabolism is like a big city map. Glucose is Grand Central Station, and there are 5 major highways leading in and out, all interconnected. And these are your 5 main highways. You've got glycolysis and the TCA cycle. Those are all about breaking things down to get energy. Then you have glycogenesis and glycogenolysis. That's your storage and release system. And finally, the HMP shunt, which is more like a specialized factory route. Each one has a very specific and very critical job. So picture this. You've just finished a meal. Your body is now in what we call the fed state. You've got all this glucose coming in, so the mission is simple. Use what you need for energy right now and store the rest so you don't waste it. The very first stop for pretty much all that incoming glucose is glycolysis. This is the universal first step for getting energy out of sugar. And what's cool is it happens in the cytoplasm of literally every single cell in your body. It's the process of snapping that glucose into smaller pieces and making a little bit of ATP along the way. You know the saying, you have to spend money to make money? Well, that's exactly what's happening here. The cell actually invests 2 ATPs just to get the ball rolling. It uses that energy to split the glucose molecule in half. But then, in the payoff phase, it gets 4 ATPs back. So you come out ahead with a net profit of 2 ATP. Pretty clever, right? And that little 2 ATP profit from glycolysis? That's just the beginning. If there's oxygen around, the end products of glycolysis can go on to be fully processed, and the ultimate energy payout is huge. We're talking up to 38 ATP from just one single molecule of glucose. That's a massive return on that initial investment. So that pyruvate from glycolysis gets turned into something called acetyl-CoA. And that molecule is the golden ticket into the mitochondrial powerhouse, the citric acid cycle, or Krebs cycle. This is the central metabolic furnace where fuel from carbs, fats, and even proteins all get funneled in to be completely burned for energy. But what about all that extra glucose from your meal that you don't need right away? Your body is smart, it doesn't waste it. It chains those glucose molecules together into a big branching structure called glycogen. This process is called glycogenesis, and it happens mostly in your liver and muscles. Think of glycogen as your body's short-term energy savings account. Okay, now let's flip the script. Let's say it's been several hours since your last meal, or you've just woken up. You're in the fasting state. No new glucose is coming in, so your body has to switch from storing energy to tapping into those savings. And if necessary, it'll even start making new glucose from scratch. So for every put energy in pathway, there's a take energy out pathway. They're like 2 sides of the same coin. Glycogenesis builds up glycogen when you're fed, using an enzyme called glycogen synthase. But when you're fasting, glycogenolysis kicks in. using glycogen phosphorylase to break down that stored glycogen and release glucose back into the blood. But what happens if you fast for a really long time and your glycogen stores start to run dry? Well, your liver is a superhero. It can perform this incredible biochemical magic trick called gluconeogenesis. That literally means making new glucose. It takes other molecules like lactate, some amino acids, and glycerol, and chemically rebuilds them into brand new glucose to keep your brain happy. And the Cori cycle is a perfect example of teamwork between your organs. When you're exercising hard, your muscles produce a lot of lactate as waste. But that waste travels through the blood to the liver, which sees it as a valuable resource. The liver grabs that lactate, turns it back into glucose, and ships it right back to the muscles to use for more fuel. Talk about an efficient recycling program. Up to now, we've been all about energy, making it, storing it, releasing it. But glucose has another really important job. It's not just fuel, it's also a raw material for building stuff. And that's where this alternate route, the pentose phosphate pathway, or HMP shunt, comes into play. The whole point of the HMP shunt has nothing to do with making ATP. In fact, it doesn't make any. Its purpose is entirely different. It's a specialized manufacturing line with two main products, a molecule called NAPPH and 5-carbon sugars called pentoses. And you absolutely need these two products. NADPH is crucial for building fatty acids, and it acts like an antioxidant, protecting your cells from damage. Think of it like rust-proofing for your cells. The pentoses are even more fundamental. They form the backbone of your DNA and RNA. Without this pathway, you couldn't build or repair your genetic code. Okay, let's bring it all home. Why do you, as a future doctor, need to know all this? Because when even one tiny part of one of these pathways breaks down, the results can be devastating. This is where the textbook biochemistry becomes real-world medicine. This table just scratches the surface. Look at von Gierke's disease. The pathway for breaking down glycogen is broken. So what happens? The person can't release their stored sugar, and they get dangerously low blood sugar when they fast. Or take G6PD deficiency. That's a defect in the HMP shunt. Without enough NADPH to protect them, their red blood cells can literally fall apart under stress. It really shows how a single enzyme defect can have huge consequences. And that's the bottom line. When you're a doctor looking at a patient's lab report, at their blood glucose, their lactate levels, you're not just looking at numbers on a page. You're getting a direct window into these biochemical pathways. You're seeing whether they're working correctly or if something has gone wrong inside their cells. So that brings us to a final thought to chew on. We've seen how all these pathways are so beautifully intertwined, but seeing what happens when they fail really hammers home how vital each one is. So I'll leave you with this question. After seeing all this, which single pathway do you think is the most critical for just staying alive? It's a tough question, but it really makes you appreciate the complexity of this amazing system.